Rivalry between games is as old of a concept as gaming is an established industry. A phenomenon that pretty much always existed to an extent, and in video games it was nothing more than an inevitability. In the dinosaur survival genre, there are three particular titles that stand at the top of the food chain: the Isle, Path of Titans, and Beasts of Bermuda, all continuously competing with each other for the valuable attention of this very niche audience. However, the first two in particular have a rather peculiar relationship with one another, and not in a good way. It is not new to see members of either side heavily criticizing their counterpart. It is common knowledge at this point that the Isle and Path players dislike not only the other game, but also its community, and they do so intensely. Conversations surrounding these kinds of topics rapidly devolve into a spew of empty critiques, nonsensical comparisons, and straight-up insults or discrimination. But why is this the case? Why are these two communities so strongly against one another? Was this a natural process, or is there something more behind these behaviors? And why is Bob free of this quote-unquote war, for lack of a better term, despite still being considered part of the top 3? I believe that last question though is the easiest to answer. Beasts of Bermuda is indeed considered as part of the dinosaur survival podium, but the population discrepancy between it and the other two games is actually considerably big, with the former having a daily peak of around 1300 players, while the Isle reaches 6000, over 4.5 times larger, and Path with 15,000. Although this information was directly quoted from Matt, POT's lead developer, there is no official nor third-party source that can prove this metric, since Path is not on Steam and the other platforms don't show that kind of info either, so while it is trustworthy, you can take this number with a grain of salt in case you're skeptical. The main reason why this conflict doesn't include Bob as much as we were expecting is for the simple fact that the game is just not as popular. In comparison, Beasts of Bermuda's community is vastly smaller than its competition, meaning that it has much lesser influence to the genre and therefore people don't see it as relevant as the other two games. But that only explains why Bob is not in the picture. Of course, we are all expecting the top two games to have some sort of rivalry between them, but to this extent is something that is rarely seen. It almost feels personal to an extent, and perhaps that's exactly what this is. The arrival of POT into the genre created a huge divide in the Isles community. At that time, there were already a lot of people tired of the problematic and slow development process of the Isle and saw Path as a breath of fresh air and an alternative to play these kinds of games. That was the initial Path community, a small group of jaded Isle players that saw this upcoming dinosaur survival as a promising game that was worth investing both their time and money. Of course, keep in mind that I'm heavily generalizing here, but even though that small portion of the player base detached themselves from the original game, another, larger demographic of the Isle players received this announcement rather negatively, which unfortunately, it's not surprising. No matter how passionate I am for this game, as sad as it is, we can't deny that the Isles community is extremely toxic, both in and out of the game. It is not unheard of people actively avoiding interacting with others or even stop playing altogether due to the sheer viciousness of the players around them. That is actually one of the main reasons why I believe community servers were so popular, especially in Legacy. The rules and heavy moderation kept the server's toxicity rather low, offering a much safer and overall enjoyable experience, but that's a topic for another video. What matters here is that this quote-unquote conflict was pretty much initiated by the Isle side and for a very long time perpetuated by them. We cannot forget the overwhelming majority of Path's original player base were ex-Isle players. These people didn't want to play the game anymore, and more often than not, they didn't want to deal with its community either. All they wished for was a brand new space where they could play something they enjoy in peace. They didn't want to have anything to do with the Isle, it was the Isle side that went after them. Was everyone like this? Obviously not. Like I said, I'm making heavy generalizations here, but that isn't to say that there were no outliers. Right now, both communities are large and diverse, with each person playing one over the other or even both without contributing a single word to this discussion. That is in fact the majority of both groups. What I'm talking about are the extremes, the quote-unquote hardcore portion of each player base that actively express themselves on the internet in a healthy way. Now, I'm in no way saying that any level of criticism towards Path is biased and unconstructive. If you don't enjoy the game for any particular reason, that's completely legitimate and you should express your reasoning and deliver as feedback so Alteron can use that information to further improve the game. And that does happen to some extent, but we all know that this dispute is not made out of constructive comments. It is saddening seeing feedback done in such toxic and distasteful manner by someone who doesn't even play the game in the first place. It feels very emotionally driven, and that's because it is. These people see Path as competition, a threat to the Isle, otherwise they wouldn't trash it like they do. You don't see them talk shit about Isles of Yore, do you? These minority of players are the most vocal because they have an unhealthy relationship with their favorite game. They dedicated a lot of time on it and they see any new title as danger that could ruin all their emotional investment. And their reaction is what we have seen for years. It's a constant devaluation of the game they hate and simultaneous advertisement of the one they are emotionally attached to. Now, I know that these people are already far gone and out of reach. They will never change no matter how you deal with them, but there's a lot of other players that mildly follow their footsteps and contribute to this toxicity between the two communities. And with the brand new year fast approaching us, I want to promote something positive for the ones that are still able to change. This is unnecessary. We don't need to enjoy both games. You don't need to enjoy both games. Even if it doesn't seem like it, they provide players with two distinct experiences and they are more than capable of coexisting. If you dislike the Isle or Path, then more power to you. No one is forced to play either one and we can all enjoy them separately or concurrently. If you want to say your piece and deliver your thoughts on the game you dislike, then do so politely and in a constructive manner. And if you believe you can't do that or simply don't want to, then just don't. Shitting on your competition won't make the game you like better, it won't save your game if it's dying, it won't restore its lost popularity. It will only create more toxicity and stain the reputation of the community you identified yourself being part of. And if any of you see malicious or disingenuous comments, don't interact with them. The more attention they receive, the more power we are giving them, and that kind of communication should not be rewarded. Let's enter in 2024 on the right foot and work together towards making the Dinosaur survival community into one that people can feel comfortable in, no matter which game they choose. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel and the content I create. If you want to join the ranks, you can do so for only $1 a month, the link will be in the description. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and opinions down below, join our Discord server, engage with the community, and I hope to see you all next year.